Who are you? That's my question. Who are you? Not the roles you play, not you being a mother, not you being a wife, not you being a girlfriend, not the business you own, not the money you have in your bank account, not the cars you have, not the house you have, not the relationship with that dude or that woman. I'm not talking about any of that. Not the title on your job that you hold. Um, None of that. Who are you? If all of those things were stripped away from you, who are you? Who are you? And sometimes that's the hardest question for people to answer. Because sometimes people think that the money they have, the cars they have, them being a mother, them being a wife, them having a boyfriend or girlfriend, them being a girlfriend or boyfriend, they think this is who they are. They think that the business they own or the title that they hold on their job, that's who they are. None of those things are who you are. They're just positions and roles that you play. But I mean, really, really, like, just really think about this. If all of those things were stripped from you, who are you? And if you sit with it long enough, it's a deep question because it'll help you to understand more of what you wasn't seeing at first. If you sit with that question long enough, you will really start to wonder, who am I? And that's what I want to talk about today. Who are you? Who am I? I ask myself that often. Like, outside of all the roles I play and what I do and how I do it, it's like, who am I? And sometimes we get so caught up in like the roles and the things that we do day to day, and being a wife, being a husband, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a relationship, your business, your title on the job. Like sometimes we get so caught up in that thinking that that's who we are, but we really, really don't know sometimes who we are because we've allowed the roles that we have to play to become our identity. And it's crazy because that's not even who we are. So that's my question. Who are you? Who are we? Who am I? Any question I ask myself, and any video I bring is because it's personal. And I wonder that a lot about myself, like, who am I? So that's what I want to talk about today. And I took notes. So the question is today is, who are you? And to the average human being, some are fully aware of who they are. But then we have a lot of us that really don't know who we are. And we base who we are based off the roles that we play in all these dynamics. So, who are you? If you take away your income, take away your title, take away your achievements, take away that relationship you in, take away all your wounds and your disappointments, take away all your social media platforms where you've elevated yourself to make yourself seem that this is who you are. Take away your social media presence. If all of that right there was taken away from you, just taken away from you, who are you outside of that? Who are you outside of these things? And that's really something to think about, because when you don't quite understand or know who you are outside of these things and these roles you play, you will really straight up identify yourself as being, this is who you are based off the roles you play. And it's not. It's really not. So even when this video ends, if you ever thought about it, do you realize why sometimes we get burnt out on a lot of the roles we play? Whether it's you being a wife, whether it's you being a business owner, whether it's you having a certain title at a job, being a mother, just anything, having this relationship. Do you understand why sometimes we get so burnt out mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually from these things? Because they're only roles. They are roles that we play, but they're not our true identity. And so we get burnt out because we are literally searching for who we are, but we're searching for who we are based on the roles we play. And we're never finding the answers. We're never finding the solution. We're never fully understanding, who am I? Because you've always based your roles and who you are based off the positions you've been given. And that's why a lot of the times as human beings, we get burnt out on a lot of these roles we play, because really in reality, internally, it's like we searching for who we are, but we still haven't quite figured it out yet. And then some people will say, oh, I'm spiritual, I'm anointed, I'm this and I'm that. I get that. I understand it. But outside of that, who are you? That's still a role you play. Who are you? And that's the question of the day. Who are you on this video? If you really think for a moment who you are, who you would be. And if you hit the pause button and just reset, and I'm going to say this, a lot of us, because we think that what we have gained in the physical world is who we are. So a lot of the times, and it's true, a lot of the times we think that because we have gained something in this physical world, like we think that because we've gained the car, we've gained the money, we gained the houses, that relationship with that dude or that female, or the marriage, we think that because we've gained these things, this is who we are. And it's not. We think that if we gained a social media presence, that's who we are. We think that we are the wounds and the disappointments of what we've been through in life. We think that's who we are. We take all of our achievements and our experience and we push that into the category of assuming that this is who we are. And it's not. We take the trauma and the things and the failed relationship, whatever it was, we take these things and we put them into like this ball and we assume that that's who we are, and it's not. And when you start to really, really look at your identity, you'll sit back and you will really understand that the reason why a lot of us feel lost, like we just don't know quite which direction to take, is really because we're trying to come back to a place of understanding who we are. It's almost like you are completely disconnected from yourself because of all the roles you play. And now you're trying to figure out how to reconnect back to yourself so you can figure out who you are. That's why it's like a lot of us, we get burnt out on things, but it's only because we're trying to find this sense of who we are. And when you're trying to find that sense of who you are, then a lot of physical things that you hold on to, or that's really just physical material things, it satisfies you for a certain time frame, but then eventually it becomes like old. And then the next thing you know, you want something new again physically. Have you ever noticed that? It's like, look at a car. You can get a car, and then you drive the car for so many years, and then you start to look at the car as being old, and then you start to feel like, okay, I want to upgrade, I want a new car, I want something different. But that, do you get what I'm saying? So it's like within us as human beings in this physical world and how we gain stuff physically, we are never satisfied. It's like we're always moving the goalposts further and further and further. Once we accomplish one thing, we want to accomplish something else, and then another, and then another. And that is because we are literally taking these physical things that's in this world, and we are actually trying to like make ourselves believe that this is who we are, this is who we're tied into being. And that's not who you are. That's why if you look at the physical things that we obtain in this world, it's unfulfilling sometimes, and you always want more after more after more after more after more. That is because you are steady trying to obtain what's in this world physically versus your soul. You know what I'm saying? It's like your soul is really who you are. So it's almost like when you can move past the physical things in your life and not think that that's who you are and what you need to obtain. When you can move past that and understand that the reason why you feel these things physically is because it's like your soul is trying to call you back to who you are. And a lot of the times, sometimes the most scariest thing for a lot of people is when your soul is calling you back to remember who you are. Because when you have been so programmed to believe that these physical things that we have in this world is our soul, you will literally continually be in a state of not being happy, not being content, not just being at peace with your life. It's because you have took these physical things that really are not even ours. They only given to us temporarily. And you have took these things and made that to your own identity of who you are. And it's almost like your soul is saying, this is not who you are. That title that you got, that's not who you are. That is not who you are. That is not who you are. The money in your bank account, that's not who you are. Your soul is calling you to come back to a place where you can understand who you really are outside of the roles you play. And so a lot of the times as human beings, we experience this lack within us internally, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, because we're searching for who we are again, but we're trying to obtain it, who we are, through the wrong way, you know? And that's why a lot of the times it's like you really, really have to understand that even your trauma, even the wounds that you go through, that's not even who you are. Everything that you've experienced, even through now I can't talk, I'm trying to twist my words up. Everything that you've experienced through your trauma and your wounds, all of those are just experiences. That's not even who you are. Those things right there are just experiences that you experience throughout your life, but that is not who you are. But society, life, the world, social media, all of these things will make you believe that your trauma and your wounds and your experiences and everything that you went through in life is who you are, when really those are just experiences that came along in your life to show you things about yourself, for you to identify it, but for you to understand that that is not who you are. And some people will take their wounds and their traumas and their role as a mother, as a wife, and a CEO, or their own business, or a job title, and money in the bank, cars, houses. They will take all of these things and assume that this is who they are, this is who I've become, and this is my trauma is who I am. This is not who you are. And that's what I want everybody to understand. Because when you have been programmed since you were little to believe the trauma and the wounds that you have been through is who you are, that is not who you are. They were temporary experiences that you experienced, but that is not who you are. So when I ask, who are you? I'm not asking from a standpoint of what you've gained throughout life and all of that, I'm asking from a standpoint of, do you really know who your soul is? Like, can you really, really identify who you are, like within your soul? So I'll say this, and I did take notes, but I guess I didn't go off my notes, huh? And I'll say this, that when you don't know who you are, it's so many people that can identify and know that you don't know who you are. When I say to you, when you don't know who you are, people can sense, because you got to realize we living in this human world, and people can sense when you don't know who you are. People can sense that, and a lot of times when people sense it, they will cross your boundaries because they know within themselves, this person don't know who they are, she don't know who she is, he don't know who he is. So I can cross these boundaries and do whatever I'm going to do to them because they don't even have a sense of identity of who they are. And that's why I say that is, but to me, it's like you have to begin to learn the essence of who you are. And that means you learn piece by piece, little by little, moment by moment. Sorry, the phone was dead. Piece by piece and moment by moment. So a lot of the times it's like this is why so many of our boundaries are being ignored. This is why we don't know how to say no when we need to say no. This is why we don't know how to separate who we are from the roles we play. This is why we don't quite understand the trauma and the wounds we get. We don't know how to separate that and understand that that is not who I am. Those are just experiences and lessons that I've been through, but that's not who I am. So when you don't know how to separate the two, you will integrate both of them thinking that this is who you are. And that is how society, that is how the world, that's how family members and dynamics and situations have made people believe that your trauma and your wounds is who you are. And they made people believe that you have to integrate the two. And that is not true. Your trauma, your wounds, the roles you play daily throughout your life are not who you are. Those are just separate things and experiences that you have to experience. But who you are at a deeper soul purpose is totally different. And when you can learn who you are, then you will start to understand the separation between your experience that you've had and the roles that you play versus who you are. And you will even learn to understand that this is who I am, but these are the roles I play. This is who I am, but these are the experiences that I've had throughout my life. And what will happen is you won't take these two and integrate them, but you'll keep them separate. And you will be able to see these things, the roles that you play, the experiences that you had to go through, the trauma and the wounds. You'll be able to see these things from a different perspective. And then you'll be able to see this and understand that, okay, but this is who I am. And then you will be able to learn how to integrate both in a way where it won't remove who you are, but it will actually benefit who you are even the more greater. But when you don't know how to integrate both of these in the right way, then you will assume that your wounds, your traumas, your pain, your affliction, the losses you've had, your role as a mother, your role as a wife, the relationship you in, the money you have, the cars you have, the business that you have, the title that you have, you will assume that this is who you are. When in reality, God is saying that's not who you are. Those are things I gave you. Those are temporarily physical things that I gave you on this earth. Those are roles that I have given you to play in these circumstances and people's lives. The experience of your trauma and your wounds and your hurt and your losses, those were things I allowed you to experience, but that is not who you are. And that is a big difference. And when you can separate these experiences from who you are, it's like God is saying, I will show you who you are when you can separate them. But it's hard for you to see who you are because you're steady trying to integrate your roles with who you are. You're steady trying to integrate your trauma and your pain and your losses and all of that and assume that that's who you are. And God is saying those are just experience. Those were temporary experiences that you experienced, but that is not who you are. And God literally wants us to get to a point of separating the two so we can understand who we are. So that when God is ready to integrate both together to make us even more powerful, or not even more powerful, but to make us even more self-aware, God is saying, then I can show you who you are. And when I show you who you are, then I can integrate all your experiences that you've had throughout life. I can integrate the roles that you do play into who you are. So that way you will understand that it's a separation, but I'm going to integrate both so that you can be so much more self-aware, so that you can be able to move in the way I need you to move. Because why? You have integrated both, but you have learned the separation of both as well, if that makes sense. So it's like God is really trying to bring us back to a place of who are you? Who are you? And I spoke on this before, and this is kind of coming back to me. But even when you look at David, right? Even when you look at David and Saul in the Bible, right? David, David was learning who he was. David was trying to learn who he was. But one thing I can say that eventually in the Bible, David did learn who he was, not based off his experiences, not based off the role that he played to Saul, not based off the fact that he had to run for his life because Saul was after to kill him, not because he had to go up against Goliath and all of that stuff. You know, like David literally had roles that he played. He was playing the harp for Saul. You know, he was a servant. He was all of these things. Those were roles that David was playing, but that was not who David was. And David knew the difference. David knew that though I'm playing this role as a harp player, though I'm Saul's servant, though I'm experiencing all of these losses and things, even when David became king and him and Bathsheba and all of that stuff, David experienced losses and mistakes and decisions that he shouldn't have made, and he experienced a lot of trauma and wounds. But David got to the place where he knew, even though I carry all of these roles, even though I have all of these trauma and these wounds and these experiences, those are roles and experiences that God allowed me to experience. The roles that I play now, that's what God granted me to God granted me to get in the position to play these roles. And the experiences that I've had with all my losses and my traumas and my wounds, those were things that God allowed me to experience so that I can experience those things, so that I can understand things in a different way, in a different perspective. And then God was able to show David, now let me show you who you really are, David. Let me show you that you really are king. Let me put you on the throne now, because now you got it. Now you are able to understand that you were able to separate who you are versus your roles that you play. You were able to separate who you are versus your experiences and your losses that you've been through in life. You were able to separate the two now. And God literally gave David the position of a king because David finally got it. I know who I am now. I get it, God. I understand, God. It's not the roles I play. It's not the positions that I took. It's not the business that I'm running. It's not my finances. It's not the achievements that I got. It's not the relationship that I got. I get it, God. It's not my trauma. It's not my wounds. It's not all the losses that I took. I get it, God. None of those things are who I am. Those are just things I had to experience. Those are just roles that you put me in to let me understand something in a more deeper, in a better perspective. But I understand now, God, that who I am is who you created me to be. Who I am is built in you, God, not in the roles or the experiences that I've had to experience. And David got it finally. God, I get it. Who I am is who I am in you, God. Who I am, God, is who you position me to be in you. What my soul desires, God, is to fulfill what you need me to fulfill. But I get it now, God. All this time, I was trying to integrate my roles in all of these people lives that I play in, that all the experiences that I've experienced through trauma and losses and wounds. I was trying to take all of that, God, and I was trying to bring it into who I am. And I get it now, God. I was never these things. I was never my experiences. I was never the roles that I play. But I get it, God, now who I am. I get it, God, because now I understand that I am who I am in you, God. And that has nothing to do with my achievements. That has nothing to do with my social media platform presence. That has nothing to do with me being the role of a mother, the role of a wife, the role of a husband. That has nothing to do with my relationship with this man or this woman. That has nothing to do with me having my own business. That has nothing to do with me being in this title. That has nothing to do with the trauma or the wounds or the losses I've had throughout my life. That has nothing to do with my achievements. God, I get it. You're trying to teach me who I am. You're trying to reconnect me back to myself, back to my soul, so that I can understand who I am, God. And God says to David, now you're ready for the position as a king. Because you get it. You get it. Is it to say that David fully came to a place of recognizing who he was completely? No. But David was headed in the right direction. See, that's the thing. We think that we always got to get it right and make it perfect and it be perfection. No, God ain't asking for perfection. God was looking for David to be headed in the right direction, because God knew if I can get David headed in the right direction, then I can work with that. And God knew in that moment David is headed in the right direction. Now I can work with it. And that's all God wants. So the only thing, I had notes and everything I was supposed to read off of, and I didn't. But the only thing I want to leave everybody with is, who are you? And when you can come to the understanding of who you are, your soul will finally find the rest that it needs. When you can finally come to the place of understanding who you are, your spirit will come to a place of rest now. And when you can come to the place of understanding who you are, you'll finally get the understanding of where God is heading you to. So I'll leave you with that. Who are you? And I'll say this, I did write this down. The greatest tragedy is not that we forget who we are. The greatest tragedy is we become so accustomed to being someone else that we stop missing ourselves. I'll read it again. The greatest tragedy is not that we forget who we are. The greatest tragedy is that we become so accustomed to being someone else that we stop missing ourselves. If you miss yourself, it's just an invitation to come home to yourself. Now, self-remembrance and self-awareness is the highest. So I'll leave you with that question. Who are you? A lot of the times we feel lost within our own selves is because we abandon our own selves. You abandon yourself to become the role of anything and everything. You abandoned yourself of who you are. And a lot of the times that is why we feel so unsatisfied, so not at peace. That's why our souls and our spirits can't find no rest and no peace, because we are still trying to figure out who we are. And until you get to heading down the right direction, you will always struggle with this part of you. Because when you start to struggle with this part of you, it's like your soul is calling you back to yourself so that you can figure out who you are. So don't take it as a loss, take it as a win. Don't take it as a feeling bad, take it as the opportunity to take the invitation up and return back to yourself now. Return back to who you are.